Hi, and welcome to another episode of Hot Takes with me, the Silver Fox. And we're moving into what is now the last story of the day, unless there's something major happening. But it's the last of the recorded stories as I do this. And I think it's nice. We're doing a nice little round off because we started the day with a Kate Forbes story. And we're going to end it with a nice Kate Forbes story. There's a certain circularity there I quite enjoy. And I hope you do too. And it also gives me a chance to do a full explanation about my view on Kate Forbes. I'll do that in the main part of the video. But I will ask, as this is the last video of the day, do please hit the subscribe button. Definitely hit the like button. We're very close. We're getting closer and ever closer to that 9,000 figure. It'd be absolutely super to hit that. So if you are a regular viewer, please do hit that. If you're a brand new viewer, do hit that. Come back, enjoy the content. We are pushing now. We're going to get them out the door in 24, and we need all the help we can get. We've got to push this and try and save what is salvageable from Scotland. But we are going to have a look at this now because Kate Forbes is starting to pile pressure onto Alibaba, Humza Yousaf. He's weak. She's growing in strength. And I think virtually everything she does now is that constant sort of momentum of pushing for the leadership. Here goes. Right, before we get into this, I want to make a clarification because there's been a lot of comments on this in the comment section. And they're perfectly legitimate comments. And I just think rather than replying piecemeal, one at a time, I'm going to set the record straight and tell you exactly where I am with Kate Forbes. Firstly, yes, let's get it out of the way. I find her very attractive. I think she's a very attractive woman, and she reminds me somewhat of my wife a little bit. I just have a thing about that look, perhaps. Who knows? So yes, I think she's attractive. Move that to one side. That's just me. I'm not sitting there a flutter like a little teenager. I'm just like, yeah, she's all right. However, and this is really important, please do not think that affects my view on her as a politician. I do push her as the best choice for Scotland, and I'm going to say this importantly, at the moment, simply because you've got another 2.5 years or so, hopefully less, but at most you've got 2.5 years of SNP government. And if you're going to have an SNP government, can we at least have someone controlling the party who is at least sane, who understands that you cannot deal with extremists like the Greens? She's sensible in that way. She would get rid of the Greens overnight, and with them, their mad, extreme Marxism, their mad gender politics. That would all go by the way. She's still, I accept, a nationalist. And I don't even have a problem with nationalism per se. I understand there are people out there who have that view. And I don't agree with their view, but I respect the fact that that's what their view is. My stance is that you cannot have SNP nationalism. That nationalism is destructive. She's a member of that, and I think that ultimately is destructive for Scotland and for the whole of the UK. There. I've said it. We now know where I am. Kate Forbes is not great, but she's the best of the SNP. And if we're going to have the SNP, for heaven's sake, have her in charge. Simply because she would remove a lot of the crap. Now, let's get into this story. That was rather a bit of a lead-in. I do apologise, but I just needed to address that. So going forward, people know exactly where I stand. So anyway, Kate Forbes piles pressure on Humza Yousaf over the NHS Scotland failures as she backs reform. Every time now she comes out and says something that goes against what is happening, you need to understand that it isn't necessarily what she thinks. It is simply an attack. It is simply that building of momentum. It is simply that push to make herself known, to give people who are on the side of the party that don't necessarily agree with what the direction of everything, it gives them a base. She is power building, and it's working. And she feels confident enough now to come out and do direct attacks against the leadership. And she's not seen as a lone wolf. She's seen as the leader of an anti-Yousaf faction within the SNP. And it's a faction that is growing. Certainly a lot of the backbenchers don't like the direction. They certainly don't like being tied with the Greens. Humza Yousaf has he has literally nailed his colours to the mast with the terms of the Greens. And Kate is coming out saying no, and she's got Fergus Ewing, who I think is almost unique in the party in being the only SNP party member who has, let's say, universal respect across all parties. You can disagree with his views on nationalism, but at least the man is genuine, and there's very few of them. Personally, I think Joanna Cherry as well. Again, not 100%, but she is at least sensible. And she's intelligent, and makes you wonder, sensible and intelligent, what the hell is she doing in the SNP? But anyway, the former Scottish Government Finance Secretary ratcheted up pressure on her SNP leadership rival as she called for the Nationalist administration to kickstart a conversation on the NHS. Basically, she's saying the NHS under the SNP has failed. Everybody knows it's failed. There's no point trying to spin it, to hide it, and to lie and say anything other than it is failing. So don't do that. Tell the truth, address the problem, and come up with solutions. That's what people want. People know the NHS is buggered beyond repair. They don't want you spinning to say it isn't. They want you to address it and say, yes, it is, but we'll try and fix it. They'll get more respect that way. And I think Kate Forbes has realised that, and that's why she's doing it. And I think she's right. Don't get me wrong. She's not wrong in everything she does. She's right in this. And I think everyone can agree that the NHS does need massive reform. How that reform happens, subject to argument. But the very fact that it needs to be reformed, I think 99% of people, even SNP supporters, accept that. Anyway, Kate Forbes has ratcheted up pressure on her former leadership rival Humza Yousaf for calling for urgent NHS reforms to fix the failing health service. The former Finance Secretary wants a national conversation to be launched on the issue as the NHS sinks more and more into disaster. I've actually got stories that I was going to do today, I just haven't got around to them, about the NHS. So we'll probably do them early doors tomorrow, first, second or third story tomorrow. I'll get a couple of them out during the day. But again, every day, it's bad. There's always bad news about the NHS. A&E waiting times have long been a problem, with the government failing to meet its 95% target for a number of years. And there's over 300,000 patients waited longer than the target time over the last 3 summers. Cancer treatments have also sunk to the new lows. Basically, people getting cancer in Scotland have got effective death sentence. It takes that long between working out that you may have cancer and getting to a consultant oncologist to be totally, examined and shown what it is and what type of cancer it is and everything, that by the time you do get there, for a lot of people, it's stage 4 and there is literally nothing that can be done. And yet these are people that could have been saved had they been seen within a few weeks. For some people, it's 6 or even 8 months between diagnosis and treatment starting. That's a death sentence. Writing for the think tank Reform Scotland, she said NHS staff were plumbing new depths of fatigue and pressure, and they are. I mean, we did the story. They're talking about working in the NHS is like working in a war zone, adding that she knew doctors and nurses who worked over their hours every single shift, they're supposed to do no more. I can't remember what the number is. Is it 100 hours or something? Like legally a maximum. Junior doctors 100 hours, and they're frequently doing 120, 130 hours simply because the pressure on the system. And of course, then they go ill because of stress and mental illness, and it piles even more pressure on the ones that are remaining. Anyway, there's been growing calls for changes to be made to the health service, with Dr. Ian Kennedy, chairman of the BMA, previously warning it would not survive the next 25 years without action. That's Kennedy there. Former NHS Scotland Chief Executive Professor Paul Gray also called for the conversation on it, which left open the possibility that some services could become paid for in the future. It is, and it's going to be the end of the NHS. They could put money in. The SNP could put money in, but they consistently choose not to. I personally think it's deliberate. I think it is deliberately underfunding it in the hope that they can cull, to put it bluntly, cull people, cull the needy, cull those. You know, if we just let them die on a waiting list, we don't have to pay for their treatment. We can save money that way. I honestly think it's there. Let's face it, they've potentially murdered 5,500 people in care homes, so I wouldn't put it past them to deliberately let people die on waiting lists. That's who you're dealing with, and don't be confused. She's part of the problem. She's just the best solution, temporarily, until the next Holyrood election. I'm coming up. I think in conclusion we can draw only one sort of main conclusion. I think there's a couple of things, but the main conclusion we have is that from now on, Kate Forbes will be looking to launch, shall we say, quiet launch, her bid for leadership. This is a typical ploy, gainsaying and criticising the leadership, and doing so from a position of power, and showing that she's got the balls to do it, and hopefully attract even more backbenchers to her cause, and even possibly within cabinet. There's one or two perhaps in the cabinet that may rally eventually to her cause. Once she gets to that point, she will have the momentum and she'll do it. And it's a story I think that will run. It's something that will happen, you know, ever more frequently, until eventually it just becomes a rolling snowball down that hill, growing with every turn, until it smashes into Humza Yousaf and knocks the whole cabinet like Skittles. They'll be gone, and then she'll emerge victorious, and hopefully at that point, and hopefully quickly, and fire the Greens and get rid of them and their mad ideas. Anyway, I shall stop there, but I do ask, do please hit that subscribe button. I think it's worth it. We need to keep this story in line, and it's something you won't want to miss as time goes on. And also, I do put a lot of output on, and you don't want to miss anything, because no, I'm not saying that everybody watches every one of them, but occasionally there'll be one up there, and you think, oh, I wish I'd seen that, earlier. Just hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. There's no obligation to watch, but at least if you're aware that it's there, it gives you the option. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this one, and thank you very much for staying to the end of it. Well done. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and I will speak to you probably tomorrow, unless there's some major breaking news. Bye.